Hello! So this is my first video on YouTube, so I'm quite excited. Forgive me for any mistakes or things that annoy you. I'm quite a quirky person, so this will be toned down about 90%. So I'm here today to basically give you 3 tips for starting out and to give yourself the best chance of making immediate sales. Now, when you first start an Etsy shop, it can take you a good month to 3 months to start making your first sales, purely because Etsy is a learning curve and you're trying to find your way, making products, doing all the good things. So what I would recommend is just to follow these tips, make some notes. I might link something below. So without further ado, tip number 1. Now, you don't need to reinvent the wheel every time. So this is especially important if you're starting a new Etsy shop. Now, my advice would be, you can listen to the people out there that say that you need to come up with something new and it has to be amazing and no one's ever heard of it before, and I actually wouldn't recommend that. And the reason I wouldn't was because that if you're going into quite a crowded market anyway, there's going to be people already searching for the thing that you're going to make. Now, I have made some notes here, so I'm going to be glancing down. You just need to make sure that you have a USP, unique selling point, and that is effectively something that makes you different from all of the other, let's use soap. So if you're a soap maker, you need to make sure that you are doing something different, or you're having a unique point that makes your soap better or builds on your brand more effectively than the other soap makers out there. And I think something that builds on this is the fact that you make soap for a reason. We're just going to carry on using the soap example. You make soap for a reason. There's something that you thought up one day or was a pain point for you that made you want to do something different in the soap industry or in the body cleansing industry. So my advice would be, dig deep, understand your why, understand why you want to do this soap shop, why you want to make it different. So let's say that in your soap brand you discovered that when you used other body cleansing soap products that you came out in a rash. Now, the thing that I would say is, after having done your own research, now that is step 1, you must understand what makes your product different and how you're going to do that. So rolling with the soap example is that, let's say you wanted to start an all-natural soap brand, eco-friendly packaging. The whole brand is very much focused on the eco-friendly soap industry. So I'm a big advocate that you should tell this story when you're building your brand, and the story should be at the forefront, because the difference between a handmade seller and someone who goes to Walmart, as you'd say in the USA, or Asda's, as you would say here, is that people are buying into you, they're buying into your story. And I'm doing hand motions here, but you can't see because they're below the screen. So my thoughts behind it is, you have to create a feel. Now, the example that I've written down here, and I'm just quickly looking through because I made notes, they're not very good notes. They aren't very good for trying to like bullet point. So the example that I've got down here is, let's say that your story behind your budding brand is that you've used other soaps and they've brought you out in a rash before, and you've looked into the sort of natural skincare route, and you've established that actually there's a gap in the market for eco-friendly natural skincare that's made in the UK. This story has to be at the forefront of your brand. It has to be something that when a customer goes onto your Etsy shop, immediately they're immersed in the eco branding, natural ingredients. They have to immediately know that when they go into your shop that is what you're all about. So talk about your pain points, talk about why you started the brand in the first place, and really engage the customer in your story. And I know I keep bringing up the story, but at the end of the day, customers are buying into you, they're not buying into your shop. I mean, just an example, how many times have you gone into Lush, and someone like me, I have eczema, really dry skin, and I can't actually use Lush, or I shouldn't use Lush, purely for the fact of their soap is quite strong. But I must say, every time I go into Lush, I come out with a bag that I've bought things, because I just love the messaging behind it. I love the shop, I love the staff. It's when you walk into the shop, you are literally fully immersed in the Lush handmade cosmetics experience, and effectively doing that online is harder, but it's not impossible. So that's why I say that your story should literally be the number one thing that you have to start off with. If you have a solid story behind you, you will make sales. It's as simple as that. Now, you might have heard before that you're not always your target market. Now, that means you sat there, you may not be your target market. Or another thing is that you may start off being your target market. Let's say your target market is age 20 to 35 and they love eco, they're a bit boho. You might, as a human, you are prone to kind of growing and changing as life goes on. So just be aware that you might not always be in your target market, but that's okay. As long as you do your research beforehand and you know you have a solid base for who your target market is, you should be fine. So what I would recommend here is actually doing some research, and I would use Etsy as a starting base to do this for. So you have to come up with something that a customer would search for. Now, start off quite broad, so let's go back to the soap example again. Type in natural soap, Etsy. Just literally do a really broad blanket search and just see who comes up first, who ranks on the top 3 to 5 pages of Etsy. Now, what you have to do is go into these shops in the buyer's mindset. So you have to pretend that you're not a budding soap brand. You have to pretend that you are a customer shopping for soap. Now, if you've sort of been doing this for the months or weeks leading up to you deciding that you wanted to open up your brand or your shop, then you should be pretty well equipped to do this. But what I would advise is that you go into the shop and you make a checklist, if you like, of reasons as to why this shop turns you on as a buyer. So let's say that you go into Bob's Soap Shop. So Bob's Soap Shop. And you realise that his pictures are perfect, that you love the fact that he's using rustic wood and he's taking pictures of his soap next to a candle or a bathtub or something like that. You know, it's a good idea to sort of write notes as to what's working for his shop. So is his copy doing well? Copy meaning his description, photographs, look at reviews. Reviews are really good chances to actually get a glimpse into the individual transaction that the customer has experienced. So that is the good reviews as well as the bad ones. So just make sure that you have a look and you see what customers really like about his shop and maybe what they don't like, because obviously once you get bigger you will get people that just didn't like the product. We will get into that in other videos. But it's just really important that you initially do your research and give yourself a good grounding for when you want to start your shop. Now, tip number 2 is itchy nose. Very sorry. Now, tip number 2, not 3. We're not quite there yet. Sorry, guys. Is that you have to come up with a list of at least 10 to 30 keywords that you want to rank for straight off the bat before you even start. So you've done step 1, you know who your target market is, you know that you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. As long as you have a good USP that you can monetize on and you can make sure that makes you different from every other soap shop out there, you're pretty much good to go. Now, from that first step, you have a good list as to what you like about other shops and a good example of reviews and what customers like about these shops. Now, your next step is to come up with your keyword list. Now, some great places that I personally love. Now, you have Etsy Rank, you have Marmalade, I'm not quite sure how you say it, but these are paid, and I would recommend when you first start out is to just make use of the free tools that are out there, because they're actually really, really good. I use them every day. You don't need to spend £10 a month on a service straight off the bat. Now, the two places that I would absolutely recommend is the Etsy search bar, because I think that's really underestimated. The Etsy search bar at the end of the day is where people are searching for anyway. So just literally go onto Etsy, start typing in ways that you think your customer would search for your soap. Now, soap is quite a good niche, because every single soap, now let's say you make soap that smells like roses, someone will be typing in rose soap or rose scented soap or rose flavored soap. Don't know why they say flavored, you're not supposed to eat soap. But people will be typing in these things, and it's quite handy to be able to make different products for keywords that you can rank for. The second place, which is actually quite I wouldn't say a secret, but it's a place that not a lot of people go to search for keywords, and that's Pinterest. Now, Pinterest, unlike other social networks, they are the people that are on Pinterest are actually primed to buy. There is a massive wedding market on there, so if you're starting up a wedding brand, you are in luck. Pinterest will literally be your new best friend. But as I said, people are already primed to buy. So what you do is, if you're not signed up for Pinterest already, do all that, make an account. You must have a Pinterest brand account, I think, for 80% of the shops out there. It's really important. It's a really good way to show off your products. So what you do is you go onto Pinterest and you start a search. Now, let's say we're going to type in natural eco soap. At the top, on the top bar, there will be like a list of keywords that people have shopped for. So they literally give you a list of other keywords that the shoppers have searched for. Now, from these, you can branch off into other searches. So let's say you typed in natural eco soap. Now, in that bar, there could be a little keyword that says gift box. Now, that means that you can actually branch off and type in natural soap gift box. Now, in there, you've got a new product idea and you've got keywords that you can rank for. So that's what I mean when I say Pinterest is really, really invaluable when it comes to keyword research. Now, point number three, is awkward. Number three is your photos. And oh my goodness, the amount of shops that I see where their photos are just, sorry, I have a hair, where their photos are just not good. They're just not on par. Taking dark photographs with blurry old phone, old camera, it's just, it doesn't cut it anymore. And I think a lot of established shops that perhaps saw really, really good sales in the beginning of Etsy and then it's gradually declined, I do think a large part of this is the fact that they're not willing to change, and people can't pick up your products like they can do it in a shop. So let's use Lush again. Now, when you go into a Lush store and you're surrounded by all of the sort of the handwritten signs and the staff members that greet you at the door, all the smells, all the like big tubs of water and things you can try, you are fully immersed in Lush. If you go to their website, it's a little bit different, and you, having not gone into a Lush store before, just going straight to their website, would you necessarily get the same feel? I don't think you would. So what Lush has to do is make sure that their photos reflect the feel that they want their stores to have. So another example of this is if you go into Hollister. Now, Hollister always made a name for itself around by me for being really dark. So you went in there and it was just like dark with spotlights and things. But what it did is it created that feel, and also it got people talking about the store. So PR, jolly good. But what you have to do is you have to sort of walk into these shops that stand out to you, and you have to go in there with the shopper's mindset and think, right, what are these shops doing that really gets people to buy, and what is that like versus online? So going back to Hollister, they make sure that their online shop is very beachy. They have lots of beachy pictures. They have clothing on the models that are the same sort of people that you see working in the shop wearing the clothes. And effectively what they do is they basically try to recreate that experience online. Now, whether it's the same as walking in the shop, I don't know. That is where the joys and difficulties of selling online come into play. You really have to make sure that the way you sell online is on par with the way you would sell in a physical store. So it's really helpful here to think of your brand as a physical store. So again, going back to the soap, let's say that you know of a soap shop, or you could just use Lush. Now you want to identify, now you've got your target market and your keywords in place, you can kind of start to get a feel for what your physical shop would look like. And Etsy, in essence, is your online physical store. I know that makes no sense, but keep going here. So for example, your shop banner, that can be like your sign above your door. So make sure that it's catchy, it reflects your brand, and it fits in with your target market. So with the soap shop, and it's an eco soap shop, you might have a little bit of soap that's actually in your wrapping, which is like an eco biodegradable wrap, with a white or cream background with a candle sort of softly focusing the background. That's a really good example of a way that you could draw your target customer in with just the photos alone. Because also, when you think about it, is that when you search on Etsy, you're literally greeted with hundreds of search results, and especially if you're shopping on a phone, which a lot of people do now, they just literally scroll and they scroll and they scroll, and your picture has to stand out. So if everyone had photographs on a white background, it wouldn't really work. And actually, if you do craft fairs or artisan shows or anything like that, you're actually at a real advantage, because you can try things, you can test things, you can put your bar of soap next to a wicker basket or a candle or something like that, and see if people gravitate towards that more, as opposed to it just being on a plain shelf or however you display your products. For an added layer of this, go back to your list of competitors and go onto their Instagram, because they always post the best photographs on there, because it's a photograph social media channel. So the best thing to do is to just scroll and just see what photos get the most engagement, what pictures get the most likes or hearts. They're the same thing. Comments are a big one too, because the more comments that a photograph has, you know, that photo is literally meant someone has taken 30 seconds out of their day to write a comment back. So that's a big deal in a very crowded online space. So if you'd like to get some input from anybody else watching or me, just pop a comment below as to what industry you're in, and we'll all try our best to help you. Subscribe if you're not already, because that would be amazing. Share, help out your other online crafters, and thanks for watching. Bye! Got something in my eye. Why does mascara do this? Oh no! I didn't mean to start that.